behind the towering glass monuments of Dubai's skyline, where fortunes are built on desert dreams and reputations crumble with a whisper, the wedding everyone would remember for all the wrong reasons unfolded. What began at sunset as the season's most lavish celebration at Atlantis The Palm had transformed into a true crime scene by sunrise. The bride lay dead in the honeymoon suite, her groom nowhere to be found, and 500,000 dirhams worth of wedding splendor now served as the backdrop for Dubai's most shocking murder case. Yet beneath the surface of this tragedy lay something far more sinister. A calculated game of psychological warfare that had been orchestrated for years, where both hunter and hunted had been circling each other in an elaborate dance toward destruction. Welcome to the True Crime Family Corner, where we dive deep into the darkest mysteries that shake the very foundations of society. Today's case will challenge everything you think you know about love, betrayal, and the deadly games people play behind closed doors. If you're new to our family, make sure to subscribe and join thousands of others who seek the truth behind the headlines, because what you're about to discover will stay with you long after the story ends. This is the story of Khalid Al-Rashid, a 31-year-old real estate mogul whose family name opened every door in Dubai's elite circles. His penthouse in downtown Dubai overlooked the Burj Khalifa. His portfolio included prime properties across the Emirates, and his reputation as a traditional gentleman made him the most sought-after bachelor in his social circle. Yet behind closed doors in his private study, surrounded by awards and family portraits, Khalid maintained a different kind of collection: files, photographs, and detailed psychological profiles, not of business partners or investment opportunities, but of women he deemed unworthy of the pedestal society had placed them on. Khalid had developed what he called his authenticity project, a systematic approach to exposing what he believed were the lies modern women told about their character and history. Over 3 years, he had identified and destroyed the reputations of multiple educated, independent women throughout Dubai's social elite. His process was methodical: extensive background research, infiltration of social circles, gathering of compromising information, and finally, orchestrated public revelation that would shatter their lives completely. His methods were sophisticated and cruel. He would hire private investigators from Al-Karama's shadowy underworld, plant accomplices in their social circles at Emirates Hills gatherings, create elaborate fake social media profiles, and build comprehensive psychological profiles. Then, when he had gathered enough evidence of what he perceived as their deception, he would orchestrate their public humiliation at the very social venues where Dubai's elite congregated: charity galas at the Emirates Palace, business networking events at the Burj Al Arab, exclusive parties at one and only the Palm. But this case would be different. This time, Khalid had evolved beyond simple exposure. He wanted to create the ultimate betrayal. He would marry his target first, gain her complete trust and vulnerability, then reveal everything in the most devastating way possible. In his warped logic, this wasn't just about destroying one woman's life. It was about sending a message to all women who dared to live with hidden chapters in their past. The wedding ceremony itself would become the stage for his most elaborate true crime psychological experiment. Enter Amira Al-Zahra, 26 years old, whose intelligence and grace had made her one of Dubai's most accomplished young women. A graduate of the London School of Economics, fluent in Arabic, English, French, and Mandarin, she worked as a senior consultant for international businesses establishing operations in the UAE. Her family's villa in Jumeirah Gulf Estates reflected their status. Her father held a senior position within Dubai Municipality's Infrastructure Development Department, while her mother chaired several charitable organizations throughout the Emirates. But Amira carried a secret that had been slowly consuming her from the inside. During her university years in London, she had fallen deeply in love with a classmate named Marcus, a brilliant economics student from Switzerland. Their relationship had lasted 2 intense years, filled with late nights studying in the British Library, weekend trips to the Cotswolds, and dreams of a future together. The relationship ended when Marcus returned to Switzerland for an arranged marriage his traditional family had orchestrated, a decision that left Amira heartbroken but determined to move forward with her life. For the past 8 months, however, Amira had been receiving anonymous messages that made her blood run cold. Photos of her and Marcus walking through Camden Market, screenshots of their private WhatsApp conversations from years ago, images of them studying together in quiet corners of the university library. The messages were always the same. I know who you really are. At first, she thought Marcus was trying to rekindle their relationship. Then she wondered if it might be someone from university playing a cruel prank. But as the messages became more detailed and threatening, describing her daily routines with frightening accuracy, she realized something chilling. Someone had been watching her, studying her, documenting her every move for months. The surveillance was professional and terrifying. The anonymous stalker knew when she left her apartment in Jumeirah Lakes Towers each morning, which route she took to her office in Dubai International Financial Center, where she had lunch, even which gym she attended in Business Bay. They had photographs of her private moments, shopping for groceries, having coffee with friends, visiting her parents in Jumeirah Gulf Estates. The level of detail suggested either professional surveillance or someone with unlimited resources and time. When the marriage proposal came from Khalid's family through traditional channels, Amira's instincts screamed danger. She had learned to trust her intuition during her years in London, and something about the timing felt too convenient, too orchestrated. She began her own investigation, using skills she had developed during her business consulting work to trace digital footprints and uncover connections. What she discovered chilled her to the bone. Through careful online detective work, cross-referencing social media activities, and following digital breadcrumbs, she traced the anonymous messages back to sophisticated fake accounts that ultimately led to Khalid al-Rashid. Her potential husband wasn't just a suitor, he was her stalker. The realization hit her like a physical blow. The anonymous messages, the surveillance, the photographs, it was all him. And now he wanted to marry her. But Amira's investigation revealed something even more disturbing. She found 3 other women who had been systematically destroyed by the same man. All were educated professionals. All had past relationships, and all had been publicly humiliated and driven from Dubai after their secrets were exposed in the most humiliating ways possible. Sarah Al-Mansuri, a former teacher at Dubai International Academy, described how Khalid had systematically destroyed her career by spreading rumors about her relationship with a colleague during her graduate studies in Canada. She had been forced to resign in shame, her family disowning her after Khalid's evidence was revealed at a public charity event where she was supposed to receive an Excellence Award. Fatima bin Haider, a successful businesswoman who had run a thriving consulting firm in Dubai Media City, told of how Khalid had infiltrated her social circle over several months, gathering information about her university years in Boston. When he exposed her past relationship with an American classmate, she lost her major clients, her business collapsed, and she nearly lost her life to suicide. Only the intervention of a concerned neighbor who called Dubai police had saved her. The third victim, Layla Al-Sharif, a young doctor who had been working at Dubai Hospital, described months of psychological torture that preceded her public humiliation. Khalid had manipulated her own friends and colleagues to gather information, then used her past relationship with a fellow medical student to destroy her career. She had been forced to leave the country, her medical license revoked, her reputation in ruins. What neither Khalid nor Amira realized initially was that their families were playing their own dangerous games. The marriage proposal that seemed so perfectly arranged was actually the result of desperate circumstances that both families were hiding from their children and from each other. Amira's father, Omar Al-Zara, despite his respectable position at Dubai municipality, was drowning in corruption charges that were being quietly investigated by federal authorities. For years, he had taken bribes to approve illegal construction projects throughout Dubai's rapidly expanding landscape. His enemies within the government were closing in, and he needed powerful allies to survive the coming storm. His wife Miriam's cancer treatment had been a convenient cover story. They were actually desperate for Khalid's family's money and connections to avoid prosecution and financial ruin. The family's financial situation was far more precarious than anyone knew. Omar had invested heavily in failed real estate ventures, borrowed against their villa in Jumeirah Gulf Estates, and emptied Miriam's inheritance to cover mounting debts. The medical bills were real, but they were just one part of a financial disaster that threatened to destroy everything they had built over decades. Meanwhile, Khalid's family was equally corrupt and desperate. The Al-Rashid real estate empire, built around prime locations in Business Bay, Dubai Marina, and downtown Dubai, was constructed on a foundation of illegal land deals, forged documents, and systematic bribery of government officials. Federal investigators were beginning to ask uncomfortable questions about how a single family had acquired so many prime development rights in such a short time. Khalid's father, Rashid al-Rashid, had built his fortune by bribing officials to secure prime locations in upcoming development zones before they were announced to the public. He had forged environmental impact studies, falsified ownership documents, and paid millions in bribes to ensure his projects received approval ahead of legitimate competitors. Now, with Dubai's government cracking down on corruption in the construction industry, the al-Rashid family needed someone with insider government connections to legitimize their holdings and protect them from investigation. When Khalid approached his family with the perfect match, a government official's daughter with impeccable credentials, both families jumped at the opportunity. Neither cared about their children's happiness or compatibility. Neither asked the right questions about how this perfect match had come about. They were all so desperate for their own salvation that they handed their children over to fate, not knowing they were orchestrating a tragedy. 2 years before the wedding that would end in murder, Khalid attended a university alumni event at the Four Seasons Resort Dubai at Jumeirah Beach. The event was supposed to be a simple networking evening, but it became the night that changed everything. Across the crowded ballroom, decorated with crystal chandeliers and overlooking the Persian Gulf, he saw her. Amira was laughing with a group of friends near the floor-to-ceiling windows, elegant in a modest black dress that spoke of sophistication without ostentation. Her intelligence shone through every conversation she had, switching effortlessly between Arabic and English as she discussed economic policy with a group of business leaders. To Khalid's calculating eye, she appeared to be everything he valued in a woman: educated but respectful, modern but traditional, successful but humble. He watched her for hours that night, studying her mannerisms, her interactions, the way she carried herself with quiet confidence that commanded respect without demanding attention. She was polite to older guests, charming with her peers, and respectful when introduced to traditional families. To everyone who met her that evening, Amira al-Zahra represented the perfect balance between old and new, tradition and progress. That night, Khalid went home to his study overlooking Sheikh Zayed Road and created his first file on Amira. He told himself it was just curiosity, maybe even genuine interest in getting to know her better through proper channels. But within weeks, curiosity had transformed into obsession, and obsession had evolved into something far more dangerous. Through careful social media investigation, Khalid discovered what he believed to be Amira's secret. Photos from her London University days showed her with a young man who was clearly more than just a friend. The images were innocent enough, holding hands while walking through Regent's Park, laughing together at a university ball, studying side by side in quiet corners of the library. But to Khalid's warped perspective, they represented everything wrong with modern women who pretended to be pure while hiding shameful relationships. He hired Omar bin Said, a private investigator who specialized in what he euphemistically called reputation management for wealthy Dubai families. Bin Said operated from a small office in Dara, away from the gleaming towers of Dubai's financial district, serving clients who needed delicate situations handled quietly. For months, this investigator followed Amira throughout Dubai, photographing her daily routines as she traveled between her apartment in JLT and her office in DFC, recording her phone conversations when possible, and building a comprehensive profile of her life, her fears, and her vulnerabilities. The surveillance was extensive and invasive. Bin Said documented where Amira shopped for groceries at Carrefour and Mall of the Emirates, which coffee shops she frequented in Dubai Marina, what time she attended fitness classes at her gym in Business Bay, even which restaurants she chose for business lunches in downtown Dubai. He recorded her phone calls using sophisticated equipment, photographed her private moments through telephoto lenses, and built detailed psychological profiles based on her behavior patterns. But Khalid didn't stop there. He began infiltrating her social circles through elaborate fake identities, creating multiple social media accounts using stolen photos and carefully crafted personalities. He befriended Amira's acquaintances through networking events at the Dubai International Financial Center, exclusive gatherings at private clubs in Emirates Hills, and charity functions throughout the city's social calendar. Meanwhile, Amira wasn't as helpless as Khalid believed. Those anonymous messages had initially terrified her, but fear had gradually given way to determination and anger. She began her own counter-investigation, carefully documenting every threatening message, every suspicious encounter, every moment when she felt watched or followed. Using skills she had developed during her business consulting work, she started building a case. When she received a particularly detailed message describing her exact routine from leaving her JLT apartment to arriving at her DFC office, including which elevator she took and what she ordered for lunch, she realized this wasn't random harassment. This was professional, systematic surveillance by someone with significant resources. Through painstaking online detective work, cross-referencing IP addresses, tracing fake social media accounts, and following digital breadcrumbs that most people would never notice, Amira discovered a network of fake profiles that all traced back to the same source. The investigation led her through multiple layers of digital deception before ultimately revealing Khalid al-Rashid as the mastermind behind her months of terror. Her discovery of Khalid's previous victims confirmed her worst fears. These weren't isolated incidents of a man checking up on potential wives. This was systematic predatory behavior targeting educated, successful women throughout Dubai's elite circles. Each victim had been carefully selected, methodically stalked, and then publicly destroyed in ways designed to cause maximum psychological damage and social devastation. The wedding took place at Atlantis The Palm on a Thursday evening in November, with 800 guests, crystal chandeliers imported from Vienna, flowers flown in from the Netherlands, and a string quartet that had performed for European royalty. The ceremony was a masterpiece of Dubai luxury, showcasing the best of Emirati tradition blended with international sophistication. Gold and white decorations adorned every surface, while the bride's dress, a custom creation from a renowned Lebanese designer, was said to cost more than most people's annual salary. Beneath the golden facade and celebration, however, 3 different deadly games were being played simultaneously. Khalid believed he was about to spring the ultimate trap on his victim, having orchestrated every detail of the wedding to maximize the psychological impact of his eventual revelation. Amira knew she was walking into mortal danger, but had developed her own plan for survival and revenge. Both families thought they were securing their financial and legal salvation through this strategic union, unaware that they had just orchestrated their children's death sentences. As Amira signed the marriage contract in the hotel's royal suite, surrounded by family members and witnesses, her hands trembled visibly, which guests attributed to natural wedding day nerves. But the trembling wasn't from fear or excitement. It was from adrenaline coursing through her system as she prepared for the confrontation she knew was coming. Hidden within the intricate beading of her wedding dress was a small, sophisticated recording device. Every conversation, every moment of the ceremony, every word that would be spoken in the hours to come was being documented. She was building evidence that would either save her life or provide justice after her death. The families beamed with pride throughout the ceremony, each believing they had secured their salvation through this perfect union. Omar al-Zahra saw government protection and financial security that would shield him from the corruption investigation closing in around him. Rashid al-Rashid envisioned his legal troubles disappearing through strategic family connections and insider government influence. Neither family realized they had just signed their children's death warrants, creating the perfect storm of desperation, deception, and revenge that would explode in violence before dawn. When the newlyweds retired to their honeymoon suite at the Burj Al Arab, a palatial space overlooking the Persian Gulf with floor-to-ceiling windows and luxurious furnishings that cost more per night than most people earned in a year, the real true crime unfolded. Khalid's demeanor changed the moment the door closed behind them. The charming, solicitous groom who had been playing his role perfectly all evening was instantly replaced by something cold, calculating, and terrifyingly controlled. He walked deliberately to his suitcase, which had been placed in the suite's bedroom, and pulled out a thick manila folder that he had been preparing for months. "I know exactly who you are, Amira," he said, his voice completely devoid of the warmth and affection he had displayed during their courtship. His tone was clinical, detached, like a prosecutor presenting evidence to a jury. "I know about London. I know about Marcus. I know everything about your shameful past." Amira's face went pale, her hands beginning to shake. Exactly the reaction Khalid had been anticipating and planning for. He opened the folder with deliberate slowness, savoring every moment of her apparent terror as he revealed photograph after photograph of her with Marcus during their university years. Printed WhatsApp conversations, detailed surveillance reports documenting her daily activities, psychological profiles analyzing her behavior patterns, 2 years of stalking and investigation laid out like evidence in a criminal court case. "You thought you could deceive me," he continued, his voice rising with the fanatical certainty of someone who believed he was conducting a righteous crusade. "You thought you could pretend to be pure, traditional, worthy of my family's name and reputation. But I know what you really are, a woman who gave herself to a foreign man, who lived in sin, who dishonored herself and now tries to deceive honest men into marriage." But then Amira did something that Khalid had never anticipated in any of his careful planning. She stopped trembling. Her face, which had been pale with apparent fear, suddenly hardened into an expression of cold determination. She looked directly into his eyes and smiled, not a nervous, pleading smile of someone begging for mercy, but a calculating expression that mirrored his own predatory confidence. She reached into her purse, which she had kept close to her side throughout the evening, and pulled out her own folder, one that was twice as thick as his and bound with official legal documentation. "You're not the only one who can play investigative games, Khalid," she said, her voice steady and strong, completely transformed from the trembling bride of moments before. Her folder contained evidence that made Khalid's surveillance operation look amateur by comparison. Photographs of Khalid meeting with his private investigator Omar bin Said, recorded conversations documenting his stalking activities, financial records showing payments for surveillance services, testimonies from his previous victims Sarah, Fatima, and Layla, and most damaging of all, audio recordings of Khalid describing his authenticity project to his accomplices in his own words. "I've been building a criminal case against you for 8 months, Amira continued, her voice growing stronger and more confident with each word. "I've contacted your previous victims and helped them document their experiences. I have evidence of your stalking, your harassment, your systematic destruction of innocent women's lives. I've worked with journalists, lawyers, and international human rights organizations to expose your crimes." She pulled out a tablet and showed him screenshots of news articles that were scheduled to publish the next morning, investigative reports that would expose his entire network of abuse, social media campaigns that would destroy his reputation just as he had destroyed others. By tomorrow morning, every news outlet in Dubai, every social media platform, every person in your social circle will know exactly what kind of monster you really are. The psychological battle that followed was unlike anything either had imagined during their months of preparation. For over 2 hours, they circled each other in that luxury suite, each revealing layer after layer of deception, manipulation, and calculated cruelty. Khalid showed her detailed profiles he had created of his other victims, explaining with chilling pride and methodical precision how he had systematically destroyed their lives, their careers, and their reputations. He described his methods like a professor teaching a masterclass in psychological warfare. Amira countered by playing audio recordings of her conversations with those same women, their tearful testimonies about the months of psychological torture they had endured, the depression and suicidal thoughts that had consumed them, the way their own families had turned against them based on rumors and manufactured evidence. She had documentation showing how Khalid had manipulated their employers to fire them, their friends to abandon them, their families to disown them. The confrontation escalated dramatically when Khalid realized the full scope of Amira's preparation and the inevitable destruction of his carefully constructed life. She had not only documented his crimes, but had been working systematically with his previous victims to build a comprehensive criminal case against him. She had contacted investigative journalists from international news organizations, human rights lawyers specializing in stalking and harassment cases, and even federal investigators who were already looking into his family's corrupt business practices. His carefully constructed world, his reputation, his business connections, his family's empire, was about to crumble completely, and there was nothing he could do to stop the avalanche of exposure and legal consequences heading his way. The hunter had become the hunted, and his prey had been preparing for this moment far longer than he had realized. In his desperate rage and the psychological breakdown that followed this revelation, Khalid attacked. The struggle that ensued was brief but savage, fueled by years of mutual hatred, months of psychological warfare, and the desperate fury of two predators who had been hunting each other to the death. The luxury suite, with its pristine furnishings and panoramic views of Dubai's glittering coastline, became a battlefield where two carefully planned revenge schemes collided with fatal consequences. When Burj Al Arab security finally arrived, summoned by concerned guests who had heard the violent commotion through the suite's walls, they found a scene that would haunt investigators for years to come. The evidence of both their elaborate schemes was scattered throughout the room like the aftermath of a psychological war. His surveillance files and victim profiles spread across the marble floor, her counter-investigation documents and legal evidence covering every surface, audio recordings of their mutual deception still playing on electronic devices. Hidden among Amira's belongings, Dubai police investigators found something that added another layer of tragedy to the case. A suicide note she had written as a backup plan, prepared to destroy herself rather than allow Khalid to destroy her reputation and her family's honor. The note revealed the full extent of her desperation and the impossible choice she had felt trapped between: death by her own hand or destruction at the hands of her tormentor. The irony was complete and devastating. Both had gotten exactly what they had planned for each other's total destruction, but neither had survived to see their victory. When the Dubai police forensics team processed the crime scene over the following days, hours of audio recordings revealed the shocking truth that neither family had anticipated. This wasn't a simple murder case or a domestic dispute gone wrong, but the violent climax of a 2-year true crime psychological warfare campaign. Khalid's voice could be heard detailing his surveillance operation and his systematic destruction of previous victims, while Amira's responses revealed her own counter-investigation and her months of preparation for this confrontation. The investigation that followed exposed a network of abuse and corruption that reached into Dubai's highest social circles, involving some of the most respected families in the Emirates. Khalid's private investigator, Omar bin Saeed, facing serious criminal charges and the possibility of deportation, provided investigators with detailed records of their operations that painted a picture of systematic stalking unlike anything Dubai police had encountered before. Bin Saeed's confession revealed surveillance operations targeting dozens of women throughout Dubai's elite social circles. His files contained detailed psychological profiles, personal information gathered through illegal means, and evidence of a network that had been operating for years with complete impunity. The scope of the criminal enterprise was staggering. They had targeted teachers, doctors, businesswomen, government employees, and social activists, anyone who represented what Khalid viewed as dangerous independence in modern women. The case exploded both families' carefully constructed lies and social standing. Omar al-Zahra, the respected government official, was revealed to be deeply corrupt, taking bribes worth millions of dirhams over nearly a decade. Federal financial investigators discovered years of illegal payments, forged documents, and systematic abuse of government resources. His wife Miriam's medical expenses, while real, had been used to cover a much larger pattern of financial fraud and corruption. Khalid's family faced their own devastating reckoning when their real estate empire crumbled under investigation. Federal authorities discovered illegal land acquisitions worth hundreds of millions of dirhams, bribery schemes that had corrupted multiple government departments, and environmental crimes that had damaged protected areas throughout the Emirates. During the trial that followed, 3 of Khalid's previous victims testified before packed courtrooms, their words making even experienced investigators and hardened journalists struggle to maintain their composure. Their testimonies revealed the true scope of the psychological torture they had endured and the systematic nature of Khalid's campaign against educated, independent women. Sarah Al-Mansuri, the former teacher, described how Khalid had systematically destroyed her career over the course of 6 months. He had planted false rumors about her relationship with a colleague, manipulated her students' parents to complain about her teaching, and finally orchestrated her public humiliation at a charity event where she was supposed to receive an excellence award. Instead of recognition for her years of service, she faced accusations based on manufactured evidence and was forced to resign in disgrace. Her own family had disowned her, believing the lies Khalid had spread throughout their community. Fatima bin Haider, the businesswoman whose consulting firm had been destroyed, testified about how Khalid had infiltrated her professional network over several months. He had posed as potential clients, gathered confidential information about her business practices, and then systematically destroyed her reputation among Dubai's business community. When he exposed her university relationship, she lost her major clients within days, her business collapsed, and she faced bankruptcy and social ostracism. The psychological pressure had driven her to attempt suicide, and she had only survived due to the intervention of a neighbor who called emergency services. The third victim, Layla Al-Sharif, the young doctor, described months of psychological torture that had preceded her professional destruction. Khalid had manipulated her colleagues and friends to gather information, used her past relationship to destroy her medical career, and forced her to leave the country when her medical license was revoked based on false accusations. She had lost not just her career, but her entire identity, forced to rebuild her life in exile while dealing with severe depression and post-traumatic stress. Throughout the trial, investigators revealed that Khalid had shown no remorse for Amira's death or the suffering of his previous victims. In his confession, he expressed only anger at being caught and exposed. He described his victims not as human beings deserving of respect and dignity, but as problems that needed to be solved, corruption that needed to be cleansed from Dubai society. "I was protecting other men from being deceived," he told investigators during his interrogation, his eyes displaying the fanatical certainty of someone who believed he was conducting a righteous crusade. These women were living lies, pretending to be pure and traditional while hiding their shameful behavior. "I was doing God's work, protecting our society from their deception." His complete lack of empathy or understanding of the pain he had caused revealed the depth of his psychological disturbance and the danger he had posed to any woman who crossed his path. The ripple effects of the trial transformed Dubai society in ways that no one had anticipated. Both families were not just destroyed legally, but socially ostracized by communities that had once celebrated them as pillars of traditional values and modern success. Khalid's parents lost their real estate empire worth hundreds of millions of dirhams and faced their own criminal charges for corruption, fraud, and environmental crimes. Omar Al-Zara was sentenced to 15 years in prison for corruption, his government pension revoked, and his family's assets frozen pending further investigation. Maryam Al-Zara, while not criminally charged, faced the devastating guilt of having unknowingly arranged her daughter's death and the social ostracism that followed their family's public disgrace. But perhaps most importantly, the case forced Dubai society to confront uncomfortable truths about values, traditions, and the protection of vulnerable individuals. Social media companies operating in the UAE implemented new policies specifically designed to prevent the kind of systematic harassment that Khalid had pioneered. Government agencies established new protocols for investigating stalking and harassment cases, recognizing these crimes as serious threats that required immediate intervention. Psychological experts used the case to educate the public about the warning signs of dangerous obsessive behavior, the tactics used by predators to isolate and manipulate their victims, and the importance of supporting survivors of psychological abuse. They explained how seemingly traditional values could be distorted into justifications for stalking and harassment, how social media platforms could be weaponized to destroy lives, and how families and communities could unknowingly enable predatory behavior by prioritizing reputation over individual safety. Women's rights organizations throughout the UAE used the case to advocate for stronger legal protections against stalking, harassment, and domestic violence. They established support networks for survivors, educational programs for families and communities, and advocacy efforts to change laws and social attitudes that had enabled such crimes to flourish in silence. As the courtroom drama concluded and media attention gradually faded, one critical question remained. Would Dubai learn from this tragedy and implement meaningful changes to protect future victims? Or would society return to the comfortable silence that had enabled such horrors to flourish in the shadows? The answer would be written in the lives of the women who came after Amira. Whether they would be protected by a society that had finally chosen to see clearly, or abandoned by communities that preferred beautiful lies to ugly truths. The mirror that reflected Dubai's social values had cracked beyond repair, revealing fractures that could never be hidden again. In a city built on the promise of transformation and unlimited possibility, the most expensive wedding of 2024 had revealed that some changes come at the ultimate price, and some secrets are worth dying or killing to protect. The tragedy of Khalid and Amira became more than just a true crime story. It became a cautionary tale about the deadly consequences when traditional values are weaponized by those who mistake control for righteousness, and when society's silence enables predators to hunt with impunity. The golden facades of Dubai's glittering skyline would continue to shine, but those who looked closely could now see the shadows they cast. Shadows where other predators might still be hunting, where other victims might be suffering in silence, and where the next tragedy might already be unfolding behind closed doors. Learn more on GLASP.